start this.
You have it all on him. I'm good.
Welcome to the Seattle PI Editorial Board, and I'll just let you introduce yourself and make the case, and we'll go from there.
Great. I'm Remy Trupin. I'm the Executive Director of the Washington State Budget and Policy Center. We're here today to talk about some work that we've been doing to develop a broad vision for Washington State and the investments that we make in the state budget, and a way that we think we can measure our investments over the time, and particularly how that connects to the particular budget crisis that we're in today, and to talk about how we can use that to measure our way forward, and also talk specifically about the analysis that we've done about the $6 billion gap that we're in at this point in time. So Ico only has 2 copies. They're like gold here. We, for the last year, have been developing something that we call the Progress Index. And it is a tool that we are going to use to analyze budget investments and create, and it's a way of articulating widely shared values that Washingtonians hold, and particularly how they play out within the state budget. The challenge and the reason why we felt this was a necessary way to talk about the state budget was that the usual conversation about the state budget is about 1,000 different line items, and you better than anyone probably understand that conundrum of groups coming in and articulating the need and the efficacy of the particular programs, but that's usually disconnected from a broader vision of where the state's going. And in the context of the current state budget crisis, that's going to be a very difficult way to think about what our priorities are, and also articulating the adequacy of the revenue that's going to be necessary to continue those priorities over a long period of time. So it's a way of keeping us on course. It's a way of developing a shared narrative, or really articulating what is a shared narrative for Washington. It's a way of having a hopeful future, and articulating a hopeful future that has these shared values. And within each one of those values, and I'll tell you what those values are, specific goals that the state can be pursuing, either currently is pursuing or could pursue better, and we will be measuring the investments within those goals over time to make sure that the state is continuing on those paths, and develop methodology to see if the end result, the outcomes of those investments are actually meeting the values that we've articulated. So it's a very data-based way of looking at the state budget. And it also, as I talk about the specific values, it articulates the interconnectedness of the things that we invested in the state budget in a way that is not so disparate, and in a way that we clearly will be trying to deal with in this budget fight, where one piece of the budget fights against another piece of the budget. So the 4 values are education and opportunity, thriving communities, healthy people and the environment, and economic security. If you were to look at the general state budget display, this is not the way you look at the state budget. You've got a section for K-12 education, you've got a section for higher ed, you've got health and human services, sometimes pegged in with corrections, you've got debt service, you've got a couple of other areas of the budget. Those are not ways of describing the budget that the general person can latch on to and understand why state government does collective things mutually for us. So when you split up the state budget this way, for example, education and opportunity also, in our view, includes things like providing things like the Opportunity Grant Program and higher education. The state budget investments are different state budget investments, about 52% of the state budget. Economic security, on the other hand, which we narrowly think of as direct benefits to people to build their economic security becomes 4% of the state budget, when most people think of human services as around 30% of the state budget. So what we're going to be doing with this, this was initially created about a year ago, when we were thinking about how do we deal with what was going to be an impending structural deficit that we would be facing this legislative session, and continue to invest in things like early learning over a period of time that's beyond a 2-year budget cycle. These are the only ways that we can know that we have outcomes over a long period of time, is if we can have consistent investment. So how do we articulate these things over a long period of time? Turns out we have a much bigger budget crisis now, and I think in many ways it's a much better tool for us to take a step back and say, what is our vision for the state? How are we going to make the case to the public around these shared values, and talk about the broad range of tools that need to be on the table to make sure that we can continue investing over a long period of time towards these values.